The war had been going on for 3 long years. Every day more ships exploded in the darkness between the stars. Every week, another planet went dark forever. The Zephyrians and the Carathians were killing each other, and they were taking the whole galaxy down with them. Admiral Jake Morrison sat in his office on Earth reading the latest reports. The numbers made his stomach turn. 50 billion dead this month alone. Entire star systems turned into graveyards. Refugee ships packed with families who had lost everything, drifting through space looking for somewhere safe to land. The war had started small. The Zephyrians wanted to mine crystals from a dead planet in the Andorian sector. The Carathians said the planet belonged to them. Both sides sent a few ships to make their point. Then the shooting started and it never stopped. 3 years later, nobody even remembered what they were fighting about. The Zephyrians had built quantum torpedoes that could crack a planet in half. The Carathians had made bioweapons that turned the air itself into poison. Each side kept making bigger and more terrible weapons, trying to scare the other into giving up. Jake's computer beeped. A message from Ambassador Lisa Carter was coming through the secure channel. Her face appeared on his screen and she looked scared. Lisa had seen a lot of bad things in her job, but Jake had never seen her look this frightened. "Jake, we have a problem," she said. Her voice was shaking. "The Galactic Council just finished their emergency meeting. Both sides are preparing to use their worst weapons. The Zephyrians are loading their planet-killer torpedoes. The Carathians are preparing their death cloud bioweapons. If they use them at the same time, half the galaxy could become unlivable." Jake closed his eyes. He had been afraid this day would come. "How long do we have?" "Maybe 2 weeks. Maybe less. The Council is in chaos. Nobody knows what to do. Some species want to pick sides. Others want to hide and hope the storm passes. A few are talking about running away to another galaxy entirely." Commander Ryan Blake knocked on Jake's door and walked in. Ryan was young but smart, and he had been tracking the war since it started. His face was pale, and he carried a data pad full of bad news. "Sir, we just intercepted more communications from the war zone. Both sides are moving their biggest fleets toward each other. This isn't going to be another small battle. They're both planning to end this war with one massive fight." Jake looked at the data. The numbers were staggering. The Zephyrians were bringing 800 capital ships. The Carathians had 900. When fleets that big crashed into each other with weapons that could destroy planets, the explosion would be visible from another galaxy. "There's something else," Ryan continued. "Our spies report that both sides have been asking questions about us, about Earth, about human ships and weapons. They're both starting to wonder whose side we're on." Lisa's image on the screen nodded, grimly. "That's what scares me most. Both the Zephyrians and Carathians are getting desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. If either side thinks we might help their enemies, they could decide to attack us first." Jake stood up and walked to his window. He could see Earth spinning slowly below his space station, green and blue and beautiful, with 5 billion humans who just wanted to live their lives in peace. Most of them didn't even know there was a war happening. They were busy with their jobs and families and dreams for the future. "Sir," Ryan said quietly, "there's more. Captain Amy Richards just sent word from the Galactic Council chambers. The refugee situation is getting worse. There are millions of families floating in space right now, running from the war. Their ships are breaking down, they're running out of food and air, and the war zone keeps expanding, so they have nowhere safe to go." Jake had seen the refugee reports. Families packed into cargo ships that were never meant to carry people. Children who had watched their worlds burn. Old people who had lived through other wars and never thought they would see something this terrible. They were all heading toward human space because Earth was one of the few places that seemed safe. Captain Richards appeared on another screen. She was calling from the emergency council session, and Jake could hear shouting in the background. "Jake, it's chaos here. The Zephyrian ambassador just accused the Carathians of planning to poison every world in the galaxy. The Carathian delegate said the Zephyrians want to blow up every planet they can't control. Neither side is listening to reason anymore." "What about the other species?" Jake asked. "Isn't anyone trying to stop this?" Amy shook her head. "Everyone's too scared. The Altarians are building defense platforms around their home system. The Vegans are moving their entire population to hidden colonies. The Centaurians are talking about surrendering to whichever side wins, hoping for mercy. Nobody wants to get between two giants who are trying to kill each other. Jake sat back, down. In 3 years of war, over 200 billion people had died. Entire civilizations had been wiped out. The galaxy's greatest libraries and museums had been turned to ash. Art and music and poetry that had taken thousands of years to create were gone forever, and it was about to get much worse. "Sir," Ryan said, "we need to make a decision. Do we keep trying to stay out of this war, or do we do something about it?" Jake looked at the images on his screens. Lisa's frightened face from the diplomatic station, Amy reporting from the chaos of the Galactic Council, Ryan holding data about fleets that could destroy solar systems, and behind them all, the image of Earth, beautiful and peaceful and unaware of how close it was to being dragged into a war that could end everything. The choice was simple, even if it wasn't easy. Humanity could hide and hope the storm passed over them, or they could step forward and try to stop the storm before it destroyed everything they cared about. Jake Morrison made his decision. Colonel Steve Harris walked into the emergency meeting room at Earth Defense Command. The room was full of the most important people in human space. Generals, admirals, scientists, and politicians all sat around a big table covered with star, maps, and battle reports. Everyone looked worried. Steve had just returned from the outer colonies. What he had seen there made him sick to his stomach. The war was getting closer to human space every day. Burning ships were falling out of hyperspace, near human worlds. Families were crying as they watched their home planets die on the news broadcasts. "The situation has changed," Steve told the room. His voice was hard and angry. "Both sides in this war are now watching us. They want to know what we're going to do. The Zephyrians sent a secret message last week. They offered us 20-star systems if we help them win. The Carathians made a similar offer yesterday." Director Kate Johnson from Earth Intelligence stood up. She was a small woman with gray hair, but everyone in the room was afraid of her. Kate knew secrets that could start wars or end them. She activated a holographic display that showed intercepted alien communications. "It's worse than offers," Kate said. "Our codebreakers have been reading their private messages. Both sides are planning to attack human colonies if they think we might help their enemies. They've decided that if they can't have our help, nobody can." The room went quiet. Everyone stared at the alien text floating in the air above the table. Even translated into English, the messages were clear. The Zephyrians were preparing to destroy human worlds to keep them away from the Carathians. The Carathians were planning the same thing for the same reason. Lieutenant Commander Nick Torres had been standing quietly by the wall. He was young for his rank, but he had earned it by flying dangerous missions into the war zone. His job was to watch the fighting and report back to Earth. What he reported made everyone in the room feel cold. "I've seen what their weapons do," Nick said. "Last month I watched the Carathians use their bioweapon on a civilian planet. 3 billion people died in 6 hours. The planet's atmosphere turned green and poisonous. Nothing can live there. Now, it will be dead for 1,000 years. He activated another display. This one showed pictures of destroyed worlds, cities that had been turned to glass by Zephyrian quantum weapons, forests that had melted into toxic sludge from Carathian bio-attacks, oceans that boiled away when both sides used their worst weapons on the same planet. "The Zephyrians are even worse," Nick continued. "Their quantum torpedoes don't just destroy cities. They break the bonds that hold atoms together. I saw them use one on an enemy fleet. The ships didn't just explode, they stopped existing. There wasn't even debris left behind." General Paul Davis was the oldest person in the room. He had fought in wars before, but nothing like this. Paul had hoped that humans could stay out of galactic politics. He had believed that Earth could build a peaceful future without getting involved in alien conflicts. Now he knew that dream was over. "Our colonies are in danger," Paul said. His voice was heavy with sadness. "Beta Centauri has 2 million human settlers. The Tau Ceti system has 3 million more. New Angeles just finished building schools for their children. If this war reaches them, those people will die, and there's nothing we can do to protect them with conventional weapons. President Helen Brooks had been listening to everything without speaking. She was the one who would have to make the final decision. The choice would affect not just Earth, but every human being in the galaxy. She stood up and walked to the big window that looked out at the stars. "How long do we have?" she asked. Kate checked her datapad. "Intelligence suggests both sides will begin their final offensive in 10 days. They're moving their biggest fleets toward the Meridian sector. When they clash, they'll use every terrible weapon they have. The explosion will destroy everything within 50 light years." "That includes the new Terra colony," someone said quietly. "And the research station at Proxima Centauri," added another voice. "The refugee ships heading toward our space will be caught in the blast zone," Nick said. 2 million alien civilians who trusted us to keep them safe." Helen turned back to the room. Everyone was looking at her. The weight of 5 billion human lives sat on her shoulders. The decision she made in the next few minutes would determine whether humanity had a future in the galaxy, or whether they would all die as victims of someone else's war. "What are our options?" she asked. General Davis opened a folder marked with the highest security classification. "We have 3 choices. First, we can try to hide, move our colonies, close our borders, and hope the war burns itself out without reaching us. Second, we can pick a side and hope we chose the winner. Third," he paused and looked around the room. "Third, we can end the war ourselves." The room exploded in voices. Some people shouted that it was impossible. Others said it was suicide. A few said it was the only way to save human civilization. Helen raised her hand, and everyone went quiet. "Explain the third option," she said. Paul activated the most secret files in Earth's military database. Pictures appeared showing human ships that looked nothing like the vessels other species used. Weapons that worked on principles the aliens had never discovered. Shields that could stop attacks that would destroy planets. "We've been hiding our real capabilities since we joined the galactic community," Paul said. "Our technology is far ahead of theirs. We could stop this war, but it would mean revealing what we can really do. Once the galaxy knows how advanced we are, everything will change. We'll never be able to go back to being a small, peaceful species that everyone ignores." Helen stared at the secret weapons and ships. Earth had built these things quietly, hoping never to use them. Now they might be the only thing standing between civilization and total destruction. She made her choice. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Harbinger, watching as human ships gathered in the empty space between the 2 alien empires. The Harbinger was Earth's newest warship, and it looked nothing like the massive, bulky vessels that other species built. It was sleek and fast, covered with technology that most aliens couldn't even understand. Around him, 100 other human ships waited in perfect formation. Each one was different from the alien warships that filled the galaxy. Where alien ships were slow and heavily armored, human vessels were quick and elegant. Where alien weapons were big and obvious, human technology was small and invisible until it was too late. Dr. Carol White sat at her workstation on the bridge, studying everything they knew about the 2 alien races. Carol was Earth's best expert on how aliens thought and acted. For months she had been reading their history, their culture, and their psychology. What she had discovered made her both sad and angry. "Admiral," Carol said, "I've finished my analysis of why this war really started. It's not about territory or resources anymore. Both sides are fighting because they're too proud to stop. Each side would rather die than admit they were wrong. They're like 2 angry children who keep hitting each other harder and harder, even though they're both getting hurt." Jake nodded. He had suspected something like this. Wars that went on for years usually stopped being about the original problem. They became about revenge and pride and fear. The Zephyrians and Carathians had been fighting so long that they couldn't remember how to do anything else. Captain Ben Clark commanded the scout ships that had been watching both alien fleets for weeks. His vessels used human stealth technology that made them completely invisible to alien sensors. The aliens had no idea that human ships were everywhere, watching everything they did and recording all their communications. "Sir," Ben reported, Both fleets are almost ready for their final battle. The Zephyrians have loaded their quantum torpedoes onto every ship. The Carathians have armed their bioweapon delivery systems. When they meet in the Meridian sector tomorrow, they're going to try to destroy each other completely. Jake studied the tactical display. 800 Zephyrian ships were moving toward the battle zone from the north. 900 Carathian vessels were approaching from the south. Between them lay empty space where the biggest battle in galactic history was about to happen. Commander Sally Pierce was Earth's smartest military planner. She had spent weeks developing the strategy they were about to use. Sally's plan was crazy and dangerous, but it was the only way to stop the war without destroying both alien civilizations. "Admiral," Sally said, "the plan is ready. We'll hit both fleets at the same time, but we won't try to destroy them. Instead, we'll show them that we could destroy them if we wanted to. We'll prove that human technology is so far ahead of theirs that fighting us would be suicide." The plan was called Operation Decisive Peace. Human ships would appear simultaneously in both alien home systems. They would allow the aliens to attack them, then demonstrate that human shields could stop any weapon the aliens had. After that, they would disable some alien ships without destroying them, proving they could have killed everyone if they had chosen to do so. Lieutenant Colonel Dan Reed commanded the assault wing that would lead the operation. His pilots were the best in human space, flying ships that were faster and more advanced than anything else in the galaxy. Dan's job was to make sure the demonstration went perfectly. One mistake could start a war between humanity and every other species in the galaxy. "Colonel," Jake said over the communication system, "are your pilots ready?" Dan's voice came back steady and confident. "Yes, sir. We've run the simulation 100 times. My people know exactly what to do. We'll show these aliens what human engineering can accomplish, and we'll do it without killing anyone unless they force us to." The human fleet began to move. Ships that looked small compared to alien vessels spread out across space, taking positions that would let them appear in multiple star systems at the same time. Human hyperspace technology was generations ahead of what the aliens used. Where alien ships needed hours to travel between systems, human vessels could make the same journey in minutes. Jake opened a channel to all human ships. "This is Admiral Morrison. In 30 minutes, we will end a war that has killed over 200 billion people. We will show the galaxy that there is a better way to solve problems than by trying to kill everyone who disagrees with you. Remember, we are not here to conquer or destroy. We are here to stop the killing and give peace a chance." On Earth, President Helen Brooks watched the operation begin from the command center deep beneath the planet's surface. She had made the hardest decision of her life, and now she could only wait to see if it would save the galaxy or doom humanity to become the enemy of every alien species. The countdown reached 0. Human ships vanished from the neutral zone and appeared in the heart of both alien empires. The Zephyrian home system suddenly had 50 human vessels floating near their capital world. The Carathian Central Command found 40 human ships sitting right outside their main military base. Both alien races panicked. Emergency alarms screamed across their worlds. Military commanders who had been planning to fight each other suddenly found themselves facing an enemy they had never seen before. An enemy that had appeared in their most secure space without any warning. The aliens opened fire with everything they had. Planetary defense systems that could destroy entire fleets focused their weapons on the human ships. The attacks hit human shields and simply disappeared, like raindrops hitting an ocean. Jake Morrison smiled grimly as he watched the alien weapons fail to even scratch his ship's paint. The real demonstration was about to begin. The first hour of humanity's intervention changed everything. Admiral Morrison watched his tactical display as human ships sat calmly in both alien home systems while every weapon the aliens had fired at them. Massive energy beams that could cut through mountains hit human shields and vanished. Missiles that could destroy cities exploded harmlessly against human defensive barriers. The Zephyrian Emperor was screaming orders from his palace on the capital world. His most powerful weapons were hitting the human ships with enough force to crack a moon. But the strange vessels just floated there like nothing was happening. The human ships didn't even seem to notice they were being attacked. In Carathian space, their high command was having the same problem. Their bioweapons that could kill entire planets were being released against the human fleet, but somehow the deadly clouds just disappeared before they could reach the human ships. It was like the humans were making their most terrible weapons simply stop existing. Captain Amy Richards stood on the bridge of her ship in Zephyrian space. Her job was to deliver humanity's message to both governments at exactly the same time. Amy opened communication channels to both alien capitals and began to speak in a calm, clear voice. "This is Captain Richards of the Earth Defense Force. We are here to end this war. You will immediately stop all combat operations and withdraw your ultimate weapons from deployment status. You have 1 hour to comply, or we will be forced to take more direct action." The Zephyrian Emperor's face appeared on the communication screen. He was purple with rage, his multiple eyes bulging with fury. "How dare you enter our sacred space? We will destroy you for this insult. No one threatens the Zephyrian Empire." The Carathian High Council responded with equal anger. Their leader, a creature that looked like a giant insect, clicked and hissed with rage. "You humans are nothing. We have been fighting wars for 1,000 years. We will crush you like the insects you are." Jake Morrison sighed. He had hoped the aliens would be smart enough to surrender after seeing that their weapons couldn't hurt human ships. But pride and anger were making them stupid. It was time for the second part of the plan. The second hour began with a demonstration that shocked both alien races to their core. Human ships began targeting the weapon systems of the most advanced alien vessels. Using electromagnetic pulses that the aliens didn't even know were possible, human forces disabled the primary weapons on 50 Zephyrian warships and 60 Carathian battlecruisers. The alien ships weren't destroyed. Their crews were unhurt. But their main weapons simply stopped working. The surgical precision of the attacks proved that human forces could have destroyed every ship in both fleets if they had wanted to. Instead, they had chosen to show mercy. Commander Ryan Blake watched the alien reactions from his position near the Zephyrian fleet. The alien crews were panicking. Their instruments showed that their weapons had been disabled by some kind of energy beam they couldn't detect or understand. Many of the alien officers were crying. They realized they were facing technology so advanced that resistance was hopeless. But instead of surrendering, both alien races did something that surprised, even the humans. They decided to fight back with everything they had left. The third hour brought the most desperate attack in galactic history. Every Zephyrian and Carathian ship that could still move launched a coordinated assault on human positions. They came from all directions at once, firing every weapon they had. Thousands of alien vessels surrounded the small human fleets, determined to destroy these newcomers who dared to interfere in their war. Lieutenant Colonel Dan Reed found himself in the middle of the largest space battle anyone had ever seen. Alien ships were everywhere, filling space with weapons fire that lit up the darkness like artificial stars. But the human ships moved through the chaos like dancers, their advanced engines letting them dodge attacks that would have destroyed any other vessel. "All ships maintain defensive positions," Jake ordered over the communication system. "Do not return fire unless absolutely necessary. Let them see that they cannot hurt us, no matter how hard they try." The human shields held perfectly. Energy. Weapons that could melt asteroids were absorbed and redirected. Physical projectiles were caught in gravitational fields and crushed to dust. The aliens threw everything they had at the human fleet and none of it worked. After an hour of futile attacks, the alien fleets began to run out of ammunition. Their weapons were empty, their energy reserves were drained, and the human ships were still floating there undamaged. Some alien crews started to cry, others began to pray to their gods. A few simply shut down their ships and waited to die. The fourth hour brought the shock that would end the war forever. Commander Blake's Technical Warfare Division activated devices that the aliens couldn't see or understand. Using quantum manipulation technology that made alien science look like stone tools, human forces reached out across space and touched every ultimate weapon in both alien fleets. The quantum, torpedoes that could crack planets, simply ceased to exist. The bioweapons that could poison solar systems vanished without a trace. In the space of 10 minutes, every ultimate weapon that both sides had spent years building was gone. They hadn't been destroyed or captured. They had been erased from reality itself. At the same time, human ships demonstrated their ability to disable any alien vessel by selectively shutting down their power systems. One by one, alien ships went dark as their engines and life support systems simply stopped working. The crews were safe, but their ships were helpless. The fifth hour began with silence. Both alien fleets floated powerless in space. Their ultimate weapons were gone. Their regular weapons were empty. Their ships were disabled. They had thrown everything they had at the human fleet, and it had been like trying to fight the ocean with their bare hands. Jake Morrison opened a communication, channeled to both alien governments. His voice was calm but firm. "This is Admiral Morrison of Earth. Your fleets are disabled. Your ultimate weapons no longer exist. You can choose to accept human mediation and begin peace negotiations immediately, or you can watch as we systematically dismantle every military installation in both your empires. The choice is yours, but you have 5 minutes to decide." The Emperor and the High Council looked at each other across the galaxy. Both had the same thought. They were beaten, and they knew it. 2 minutes after Admiral Morrison's ultimatum, both alien governments transmitted their surrender. The Zephyrian Emperor's voice shook as he spoke to the human fleet. The Carathian High Council's message was even shorter. Both said the same thing. They would accept human mediation and begin peace talks immediately. Ambassador Lisa Carter found herself at the center of the biggest diplomatic event in galactic history. Within days of the 5-hour war, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from hundreds of worlds wanted to know how humanity had hidden such advanced technology for so long. The council chamber was packed with aliens who looked confused and frightened. Some species that had considered humans to be primitive newcomers were now demanding explanations. Others were already asking if they could become human allies. A few were openly afraid that Earth would conquer them all. President Helen Brooks addressed the galaxy from the council podium. Her words were broadcast to every civilized world, and billions of aliens listened as she explained what had really happened. "We kept our technology secret because we were afraid," Helen said. "When we first joined the galactic community, we saw how the major powers treated smaller species. We decided to let everyone think we were weak while we developed in secret. We hoped we would never need to reveal what we could really do." The revelation shocked the galaxy. Earth's scientists had been pretending to be centuries behind everyone else while actually being generations ahead. Human ships that looked small and simple were actually more advanced than anything the major powers had built. Weapons that appeared to be basic defensive systems could neutralize planet-killing devices. Dr. Carol White had been right about why the war had lasted so long. Both alien races had been fighting not because they needed to, but because they were afraid of becoming obsolete. They had seen the galaxy changing around them and had chosen to fight rather than adapt. The Zephyrians and Carathians weren't really fighting over territory, Carol explained to the council. They were fighting over who would control the old ways of doing things. Both civilizations knew that their traditional approach to warfare and politics was becoming outdated, but instead of learning new methods, they decided to destroy each other. General Paul Davis announced the creation of something that had never existed before, the Galactic Peace Corps. This new organization would prevent future wars through a combination of diplomacy and overwhelming force. Any civilization that chose aggression over negotiation would face the same decisive intervention that had ended the Zephyrian-Carathian War. "We don't want to rule the galaxy," Paul explained. "We want to make sure that no one else has to die in pointless wars. Any species that commits to peaceful development will receive access to human technology. Those who choose violence will discover that war is no longer a viable option." The transformation wasn't easy. Some alien species viewed humanity's sudden emergence as the dominant galactic power with suspicion and fear. The Altarians accused humans of being secret conquerors who had been planning galactic domination for years. The Centaurians worried that Earth's intervention in the war was just the first step toward human imperialism. But most species realized that the alternative was much worse. Before human intervention, The galaxy had been heading toward an age of increasingly destructive wars. The weapons that the Zephyrians and Carathians had developed were just the beginning. Other species had been working on even more terrible devices. Without someone to stop them, the galaxy would have eventually destroyed itself. Captain Ben Clark found himself commanding the first mixed-species fleet in galactic history. His task force included human ships working alongside former enemies who were now learning to cooperate. Zephyrian and Carathian crews worked together to help rebuild the worlds their war had destroyed. "It's amazing," Ben reported to Earth. "These species that were trying to kill each other 6 months ago are now sharing technology and resources. The Zephyrians have knowledge about energy systems that the Carathians need. The Carathians understand bioscience in ways that could help the Zephyrians heal their wounded worlds." Within a year of the 5-hour war, 36 civilizations had requested membership in the Terran Technology Sharing Initiative. Species that had spent centuries fighting over resources were suddenly working together to solve common problems. The galaxy that had seemed doomed to destroy itself through endless warfare was beginning to experience a renaissance of cooperation and discovery. The refugee crisis that had threatened to destabilize dozens of worlds was solved through joint efforts. Human transport technology allowed displaced populations to be relocated quickly and safely. Zephyrian engineering expertise helped build new cities on empty worlds. Carathian bioscience restored damaged ecosystems that had been poisoned by war. Admiral Morrison looked back on the changes from his new position as head of galactic security. The job was bigger than anything he had ever imagined, but it was also more rewarding. Instead of planning for war, he spent his time preventing conflicts before they could start. "We've changed the basic rules of how the galaxy works," Jake told his staff during a planning meeting. "For thousands of years, power came from the ability to destroy your enemies. Now power comes from the ability to solve problems and help others. The species that advance the fastest are the ones that cooperate the most." The war that was supposed to determine which ancient civilization would dominate the galaxy had instead created something entirely new. The age of galactic warfare was over, replaced by an era where technological advancement and peaceful cooperation determined influence. 3 years after the 5-hour war, the galaxy was unrecognizable. Trade routes that had been cut by conflict were busier than ever. Scientific research that had been focused on weapons was now directed toward exploration and discovery. Art and culture that had been suppressed during wartime were flourishing again. The transformation wasn't complete. There were still species that resented human dominance, and some groups tried to start new conflicts, but they discovered that the galaxy had changed too much to go back to the old ways. War was no longer profitable when peace brought so many benefits. As Jake Morrison often said in the speeches he gave to young officers, humanity had entered the war to end it. But they had accomplished something much more important. They had ended the era of war itself.